Okay, continuing with lessons for ninth grade. Okay, we're going to continue with quadratic equations. Okay, now this is the topic that we started covering before we went into quarantine. Okay, so we're going to do several of these ones. Okay, because remember, we can solve using different methods. Okay, you can solve by completing the square, by factoring, or by using the quadratic equation. Okay, so we're going to do 2 lessons for factoring, 2 lessons for completing the square, and 2 lessons for the quadratic formula. Okay, so this is lesson number 1. Well, technically it's lesson number 5, but lesson number 1 on solve by factor. Okay? Now, the one thing that you need to remember is that when we are talking about a quadratic equation, okay, we're talking about a variable that is elevated to the second power. Okay, we will have a term, okay, to the 1 power, okay, a linear term, and we will have a constant. Okay, now sometimes in some equations we will be missing one of these numbers. So what we will need to do is either complete or just solve by factoring. Okay, so we'll do them 2 by 2s. Okay, so let's work on the first ones. Okay, let's work on number 1. Okay. What you need to remember when we have quadratic equations is that we're looking for terms that will make this equation equal to 0. Okay? Now, when we were talking about solve by factoring, you have to remember that we were trying to make this equation into different terms so that we can identify which numbers are going to make our equation 0. Now, when we're talking about solve by factoring, several times we will have these type of equations where we can work using the factoring rule. Okay, what we do is we take the variable, okay, and we make it into 2 terms. Why? Because we're looking for x times x is going to give me an x squared. Okay, so here what we will need to do is find the numbers that are going to help us find the middle number. Okay, this one and this one. Okay, we already have this one. X times x is going to give us x squared. Okay, now one rule that we can follow, okay, that's going to help us a lot is the following. Okay, when we're converting this into this, okay, what we can do is first we copy the first symbol. Okay, this one is going to be minus. Okay, and the second term here is going to be the multiplication between the first term and the second term. So we have negative times negative, times positive, it's going to be negative. Okay, now how do we get to the term in the middle and how we get to the term at the end? Okay, we're looking for numbers that multiplied are going to give us 6, but added or subtracted are going to give us minus 5. Okay, so let's think about these numbers. Multiplied. Okay, what numbers can we multiply that are going to give us 6? Okay, it can be 6 and 1. 6 times 1 is 6. Or we can have 3 times 2 is 6. Okay? So let's try it with 3 times 2. Okay, so we have 3 and 2. Let's see if this is going to help us get to this one. Okay? Minus 3 times minus 2, 6. Positive. And the middle term, remember, is when we add the terms. So minus 3 minus 2 is minus 5? Yes. Okay? Now, why can't we use 6 and 1? Because if we have 6 and 1, it's going to give us the middle one. Okay? 6 times 1 is going to give us this one. But minus 6 minus 1 is going to be minus 7. So it's not going to give us the middle term. Okay, so we're looking for the middle term is going to be a product of adding, okay, these two. And the third term is going to come from a multiplication. Now, how do we know that this is true? Let's try it. X times x, x squared. X times minus 2, minus 2x. And then minus 3 times x, minus 3x. Minus 3 times minus 2, plus 6. So we have minus 2 minus 3, minus 5. X, right? And then we just copy the 6. So this is how we know that our factoring is true. Okay, because we bring it from this to this, and then we solve for this to see if we have the same thing. Okay, so this one is the same as this one. So that's how we know that it is true. Okay, now since we have this, okay, what we need to do is take this term and equal to 0. And this term is equal to 0. Okay? So here we have x equals minus 3 to the other side, 3, and minus 2 to the other side, 2. Okay? So these are the numbers that we're looking for. Okay? Because these are the numbers that are going to make this into 0. Let's try it. Let's say that x is equal to 3. X to the square, that would be 9, minus 5 times 3, 15. So 9 minus 15 minus 6 plus 6, 0. Same thing with 2. X to the square, 8. Okay, sorry, 2 to the square, 4. Minus 5 times 2, 10. So 4 minus 10, minus 6 plus 6, 0. Okay? Let's review. How did we find these numbers? Okay, remember that using the distributive property, we're going to multiply these terms times these terms. So what we're looking for are numbers that are going to bring us from here to here and from here to here. Okay? And they have to give us 0. Okay? So that's how we factor. The middle term here is the addition between this term and this term. And this term is the multiplication between these two. Okay? Let's work on number 2. Number 2 says 3x squared minus 6x equals to 0. Now in this one, technically we are missing one term. Okay, but we can work with the terms that we already have. So what do? We want to take the x outside so that we have an x with a term inside. Okay, so the 3, okay, we can take it out, okay, so that we can have numbers inside. Okay, so for example, I can take out 3x and have x minus 2. How do I know these numbers? Let's check. 3x times x, 3x squared. 3x times minus 2, minus 6x. Okay? And what we do here is that since we have this term outside and this term inside, we have to equal both terms to 0. Okay, so here it's pretty simple. X equals to 0. Okay, because 3 times 0, 0. Okay, and this one, minus 2, we move it to the other side, and we have that it's 2. Okay, so these are the numbers that make this true. How do we know? Let's check it. 0. 0 to the square, 0. 3 times 0, 0. Minus 6 times 0, 0. 0 minus 0, 0. Okay, let's check this number. 2. 2 to the square, 4. 3 times 4, 12. 6 times 2, 12. 12 minus 12, 0. Okay, so this one is a little bit different from this one. We do not need to find 2 terms. We just need 1 inside, and we equal the other term to 0 as well. Okay, so remember, when we're looking for factoring, okay, we're looking for the terms that are going to make this into 0. Okay? Let's work on number 3 and number 4. Okay, one moment so you can take a look at it. Remember, it's a video. You can pause and copy. Okay, so number 3 says 4x squared minus 2x equals to 0. Okay, so here we work, same thing. Okay, we need to take out a number with a variable, sometimes with a variable, so that we can find a term inside. Okay, so here we have 2x. Let's take out 2x. So if we take out 2x, here we have 2x. How do we know it's 2x? Because 2 times 2, 4. X times x, x squared. Okay, and since 2x is already here, we know that it's minus 1. Okay, because 2x times minus 1 minus 2x. Okay? Now, how do we solve? 2x equals to 0, and 2x minus 1 equals to 0. Okay? On the first one, we already know that x is equal to 0, because 2 times 0 is 0. And here we have 2x equals to minus 1 to the other side. 1 divided by 2 divided by 2, x equals 1/2. Okay? How do we know this is true? Let's try it. X equals to 0. X to the square, 0 to the square, 0 times 4, 0, minus 2 times 0, 0, so 0 minus 0 equals 0. And let's try 1/2. 1/2 to the square is 1/4. 1/4 times 4 is 1. And 2 times 1/2 is 1. So 1 minus 1, 0. Okay, so that's how we know that our answer is correct. Okay, so remember, here we have the term for A, the term for B, but we don't have C. Okay, so C, we don't need to worry about it because we can work the ones that we have. Let's do number 4. Okay, now this one can get a little trickier because usually we have, 0, or we have 1, or an easier number like this one. Okay, now 16 can be worked in different ways. Okay, because we can have 16 times 1, 16. We can have 4 times 4, 16. We can have 8 times 2, 16. Okay, so let's try working numbers that are smaller to the bigger ones. Okay, so let's say that I'm going to try different combinations so that you know how I work these numbers. Okay, so how do we get to 16? Let's try 2 times 8. Okay, so if we were to try 8x, 2x, okay, we copy the first sign. Okay, remember, this is the rules that we follow. We copy the first sign, and the second one is the multiplication between this one and this one. Okay, so we copy the first one, and then the second sign is negative times positive, negative. Now we're looking for numbers that multiplied are 1 and that added are minus 8. Do we have some? No, but let's try 1 and 1. Okay, because we need this one to be multiplied. Okay, the ones in the middle can be worked by adding and subtracting. Okay, so let's try 8 times 2, 16x squared. 8 times minus 1, minus 8x. Minus 1 times minus 2, minus 2, and we have 1. So we have 16x squared minus 8 minus 2 minus 10x plus 1. Did we get to this number? No. Okay, so we cannot use 8 and 2. Let's try another combination. Okay? Let's try 4 and 4. Okay, we already tried 8 times 2. Now let's try 4 and 4. If that doesn't work, we're going to try 16 and 1. Okay, so let's try 4. 4x equals to 0. Okay, now remember, the first sign we copy. Okay, let me put it in a different color so you can see. We copy the first sign, negative, and the second one is the multiplication between this one and this one. So we have negative as well. Now, what numbers multiplied give me 1? Only one number, right? 1 and 1. Now, how do we know if this is true? If we multiply using the distributive property, we can get to this number. So let's try. 4 times 4, 16x squared. 4 times minus 1, minus 4x. Minus 1 times 4, minus 4x. And minus 1 times minus 1, plus 1. 16x squared minus 8x plus 1 equals 0. Did we get to this one? Yes, it was perfect. Okay, so this one is equal to this one. Okay, so that means that 4x minus 1 and 4x minus 1 are the factoring terms for this equation. So we take 4x minus 1 equals to 0 and 4x minus 1 equals to 0. Okay? So we only do it on one side because it's the same thing. So we have 4x equals plus 1, 0 plus 1, 1. Divided by 4, divided by 4. So we have that x is equal to 1 over 4. And this is the answer that we were looking for, and it's the same on this side, so we don't have to do it 2 times. Okay? We only need 1. Okay? So how do we know that this is true? Let's try it. 1/4 to the square is 1 over 16. So 16 times 1/16, 1. Okay? Minus 8 times 1/4 is 2. Okay, so we have that 1 minus 2 is minus 1 plus 1 is equal to 0. Okay, so remember, we're looking for the terms that they're going to make our equation equal to 0. Okay, so sometimes we have to try different numbers. We tried 8 and 2, but it didn't give us the middle number. But 4 and 4 gave us the middle number and the last term. Okay, because remember, the last term is the multiplication between these two, and the middle term is the addition between the numbers in the multiplication. Okay, so sometimes it's not going to be exact because of the multiplication. Okay, so that's why we have to try different numbers. Okay, let's work on number 5 and number 6. Okay, one moment so you can copy. Perfect. Remember, since it's a video, you can stop. Okay, let's work on number 5. Okay, so what do we do here? It's not equal to 0, so we need to move this number here so that we can have the equation equal to 0. And that way we'll have our quadratic equation minus 18 equal to 0. Okay? Now, let's look for the numbers, okay, using the distributive property that are going to give us this to 0. Okay? So what do we do first? Okay, we copy the x. Okay, because this multiplication times this multiplication is going to give me this number. Okay? Now, we're looking for numbers that multiplied are going to give me negative 18, and that added are going to give me 3. Okay? Remember, the term C is the multiplication. And term B is adding or subtracting. Okay, so we need numbers that multiplied are 18 and that added are 3. Now, what are the factors for number 18? It can be 9 times 2, 3 times 6, or 18 and 1. Okay? Let's try 9 and 2. Okay, so we copy the first sign. This one we copy. Positive times negative, negative. Okay, so we're going to try 9 and 2 first. Okay, so 9 and 2. Why? Because they give me multiplication by 18. Let's try. X squared, x times minus 2, minus 2x. 9 times x plus 9x. And 9 times minus 2, minus 18. So we have x squared minus 2 plus 9 plus 7 minus 18. Did it give me the middle number? No, because the middle number is a 3. Okay, so we cannot use 9 and 2. Let's try other factors for 18. So, 9 and 2? 9 and 2? No. Let's try 6 and 3. Okay, so we have x equals to 0. Okay, the first sign we copy. The second sign, let me put the arrow so that you know where it comes from. Okay, remember the second sign is the multiplication between the first sign and the second sign. Okay, so positive times negative, negative. Okay, so we're going to try 6 and 3. Okay, let's try the multiplication so that we can try if it gives us this number. X times x, x squared. X times minus 3, minus 3x. Plus 6 times x, plus 6x. And 6 times minus 3, minus 18. Did we get to that number? X squared minus 3 plus 6 plus 3x minus 18 equal to 0. Do we have the same equation here and here? Yes. Okay, so these are the numbers that we're looking for. X plus 6, x minus 3. Okay, what do we do now? We solve for each one. X plus 6 equal to 0, and x minus 3 equal to 0. Okay, so x is equal to minus 6, and x is equal to 3. Let's check if these answers are correct. Let's try 3. 3 to the square, 9. Plus 3 times 3, 9. 9 plus 9, 18. Let's try negative 6. Negative 6 to the square, 36. Plus 3 times minus 6, minus 18. So 36 minus 18, 18. Okay? So remember, we're looking for numbers that added give us the middle term, and and multiplied give us the term C. Let's try number 6. Number 6 says x squared minus 3x equals to 3x squared minus 4x. Okay, so what do we need to do? Squares with squares, linear with linear. Okay, so this one is positive, comes to the other side, negative. And this one is negative. Okay, it stays negative because it's on this side. And this one is negative, it comes to this side, positive. Okay, so we have 3 minus 1, 2x squared. And then we have that minus 3 plus 4 is x positive. Okay, so we move the x to the other side, and we have this one. Okay? So what do? We take out the x so that we have 2x minus 1. Okay? So we need to solve for each term. X equals to 0 and 2x minus 1 equals to 0. This one to 0, this one to 0. Okay, this one stays the same. 2x equals to 1 and 1 equals 1/2. Okay? How do we know that this is true? Let's try it. X equals to 0. 0 minus 0, 0. 3 whatever times 0 times 3, 0. Minus 4 times 0, 0. 0 equals 0. Okay? And if we take this one and we put it here, it's going to give us 0 equals to 0. Okay? So, in this one, we are not technically factoring like this one. What we're doing is we are solving for 1 so that we can have a term here so that we can solve to 0. Okay? Let's work on the last two, number 7 and number 8. Okay, we have that number 7 okay, we have that x squared is equal to 16. Okay, now what do we know about this? We have the term for letter A, the consonant, which is 1, and 16 by itself is going to be term C. Okay, because we're going to take the 16 and put it on the other side because we need to know the values for 0. Now, since we don't have the middle term, that means that the middle term is 0. Okay? So, we need to factor the numbers that we already have. Okay? So, let's see. We know that x times x. Okay? Now, how do we get to minus 16? Okay? Since we only have one sign, that means that this one is positive and 1 is negative. Okay? Why? Because the multiplication of this number times this number is going to give me a negative, okay, a negative answer. So it can be either positive and negative, or we can switch it and say negative and positive. In this type of exercise, it doesn't matter. Okay? In this type of exercise, it doesn't matter. Okay? Because we have negative term here. Okay? So, how do we get to 16? It can be 2 times 8, it can be 4 times 4, or it can be 16 times 1. Now, if the middle term is going to give us 0, that means that this one is easier because we know it's 4. How? Let's try it. X times x, x squared. X times plus 4, plus 4x. Minus 4 times x, minus 4x. And minus 4 times plus 4, minus 16. Okay? So, this one cancels with this one. 4 minus 4, 0, right? So we have that x minus 16 equals to 0. Is this the same as this one? Yes. Okay? So what do? We solve x minus 4, x plus 4 equals to 0, equals to 0. Okay, so x equals to 4 and x equals to minus 4. And that's how we have our answers. Okay? This one was a little bit easier because we have the term and it's a term that has a square. Okay, so it's easier. Okay, we could try with 8 and 2 or we could have tried with 16 and 1. Okay, but both of those combinations, okay, we're going to give us a middle term and the middle term is 0. So we're looking for something that the middle term is going to give us 0. Okay? Let's work on the last one. 16x squared equals to 64. Same thing. We need to take this 64 and put it on this side and equal to 0. This one is exactly the same as this one. Okay, what we need to do is multiply two terms that are going to give us 16 on this side, 64 on this side. Okay, so let's try. And they both have to give us equal to 0. Okay, so how do we get to 16? 4x, 4x. How do we get to minus 64? Okay, one plus term, one minus term. Okay, and how do we get to 64? 8, right? 8 and 8. Okay, if you notice, here we have this term, and the middle term would be 0. 8 minus 8, 0, and multiplied, 64. Okay? How can we check if this is true? Let's do it. 4 times 4, 16x squared. 4 times minus 8, minus 32, x. Plus 8 times plus 4, plus 32x, and 8 times minus, okay, minus 8 is going to give us minus 64. We cancel this, and we have 16x squared minus 64 equals to 0. Is this the same as this one? Yes. So we know it is true. Okay? So how do we solve? 4x plus 8 equals to 0, and 4x minus 8 is equal to 0. Okay? So we have that 4x equals minus 8 divided by 4, and x is going to be minus 2. Okay, same thing here, equals to 8 divided by 4 divided by 4, x equals 2. Okay, so there we have our answers. Okay, how do we know that these numbers are true? Let's try them. 2 to the square, 4. 4 times 16, 64. Let's try negative 2. Negative 2 to the square, 4 times 16 equals to 64. Okay? So, if you have any questions, remember to review this video. Okay? Under this video, you'll find some exercises so that you can solve, okay, and continue practicing solve by factoring. If you have some questions, you can let me know via email or WhatsApp, and I will gladly help you with some answers.